Your picture is that the Bible is the inspired record of God's redemptive work or His task in redeeming fallen man back to Himself. So every time that we open the Bible, every passage that we read, whether it's a book, chapter, verse, sentence, whatever, it always goes back to that. How does this relate to this unfolding plan of God to save man? All right, so Esther is one of those books that makes it very abundantly clear regarding the fact that God will accomplish what He sets out to accomplish in regards to this. Up to this point, we have Esther being placed into the position of queen. And remember, all of these things that we kind of just started stacking on top of each other, showing God at work, even though He's not specifically mentioned in the book. But we have Esther being placed into this position as queen. Mordecai, one of the first things that we learned about him, what did he end up doing in regards to the king? Saved his life, right. He overheard a couple of people conspiring to kill him or assassinate him. He let that be known, and he put it to a stop as a result of that. Then we have this introduction of who's the bad guy? Haman. All right, and his background is what? What is he? Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty good. I think you got it the last time. He is a descendant of King Agag in some way, right? So this problem should never have arisen to begin with had King Saul taken care of what he should have taken care of before in obedience to God. But now we have this individual that wants to exterminate the Jews. He has this run-in with Mordecai, who refuses to bow down and reverence him. And so he has determined that he's going to not only exterminate Mordecai, he's going to exterminate all of the Jews. And so basically he talks the king into vowing to do this without really the king being aware of the ramifications. The king, up to this point, doesn't even know, remember, that Esther is a Jew, right? So we have things starting to fall out to their favor. We find Mordecai approaching Esther, and this is kind of the central point of the book. What is Mordecai, knowing about the plot to kill the Jews, what does Mordecai tell Esther because of her position? Yeah, who knows whether you come to the kingdom for such a time as this. He says that whether she does what she needs to do or not, deliverance will arise from the Jews from some other source if that's the case, if she doesn't do what she's supposed to do, but she's not going to be guiltless in this. And so she puts her life on the line and is able to approach the king and begins this plan to make things known. Mordecai, you remember, also making Haman mad again, ends up deciding that Haman is going to hang him, and so he builds gallows, right? Then what happens regarding a problem sleeping? King?
He remembers, he has the Chronicles work.
Yeah, I need something really boring to be read to me so I can fall asleep, right? And it happens to be the Chronicles, the events, the records of what all had gone on, and then he heard the account of Mordecai saving his life. And he decides that he's going to honor him, so he brings Haman in, who just happens to be outside. By the way, so just stacking those things up. So you got the queen in the right place, you've got Mordecai in the right place, you've got Haman. Haman's just outside. This is going to make him even more angry. So he goes in and he calls him in and asks, what should I do for somebody that I want to honor? And what does Haman think? He's going to honor me, right? So he gives him a plan, and the king says, that's a great idea. Now I need you to do that for Mordecai. All right, so it's just hot coals on his head now. He decides that he is in a bad position. Remember that he had already gotten advice from his wife and from his friends. And so let's look at the end of chapter 6 now, starting at verse 12. This is after, he's been made a fool of. And he goes back and he lets them know. So let's read 6, 12 through 14, somebody.
King heard his house, warning him to stay in trouble. King told his wife, was still talking with them, being human, and in case of brain,
Okay, and remember that there is this banquet where she's going to reveal this stuff, but where we left off, really, we emphasized verse 13. He had gotten advice, right, from these people, including his wife, and now all of a sudden they're turning around and saying, if this has to do with the Jews, you're sunk. Why didn't they tell him that before? I mean, they're supposed to be wise and all that, right? Why didn't they tell him that before? Thanks a lot, right? Okay, now chapter 7. So it's time for this banquet, and let's see what happens from here. Somebody start reading chapter 7.
So the king and Haman went in to feast with Queen Esther. And on the second day, as they were drinking wine after the feast, the king again said to Esther, "What is your wish, Queen Esther? It shall be granted you. And what is your request? Even to the half of my kingdom, it shall be fulfilled."
Okay, stop for just a minute. Again, she has gained favor in the king's sight, right? No, we didn't even mention the fact that she ascended to the throne by means of her beauty and no doubt the way that she carried herself, and she has his eye to the point that he's willing to give her half the kingdom, right? Poor fellow. Well, I mean, it's gonna work out okay, but I mean, he loves her, or at least in some way is favorable toward her, right? But that works out really to the advantage of God's people. Another thing to keep in mind as we're looking at this, I know that we continue to allude to it, but God is going to accomplish His plans, His purpose. He's going to redeem fallen man. That's going to take the fulfillment of this plan that will include obviously the Jewish nation and the lineage that ultimately will lead to Christ coming into the world to be the Savior of it. But in the midst of all of that, while God is working, He's using men, right? I mean, He's using humanity to accomplish His purpose. I mean, He's all powerful. I suppose that he could work it out a different way, right? I think we read something about God was able to raise up stones, right, a nation out of stones. I think that God can handle it, but He includes His creation in on His plans. And by the way, that seems only fair. Listen, if I am going to help you, if I'm serving you, if I'm going to save you and spare you, you can at least lift a finger or two, right? You can put forth a little bit of effort. Not that you're earning anything in the sense of I'm in debt to you now, but you can do your part, and God requires that. But either way, God has confidence in us to be able to do what He requires. Okay, so here is this king, just by his favor toward Esther, working into the eternal plans, eternal scheme of redemption of God. Interesting, and he doesn't know it. Okay, keep going.
Then Queen Esther answered, "If I have found favor in your sight, O king, and if it please the king, let my life be granted me for my wish, and my people for my request. For we have been sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be killed, and to be annihilated. If we had been merely sold as slaves, men and women, I would have been silent, for our affliction is not to be compared to the loss of the king." Then King Ahasuerus said to Queen Esther, "Who is he and where is he? Who has dared to do this?" And Esther says,
Wait. What do you think Haman's thinking right about now? I'm trying to think of some just humorous scenario like, hey, how about these rolls? Aren't they great? I mean, just anything to divert attention, right? Okay, so he wants to know now, who's done that? We've been sold. My people and I have been sold for annihilation. Go back to that. She gives the same list that Haman was very clear regarding as well, which also took us back to God's command through Samuel to Saul regarding the Amalekites and regarding Agag. Back up at verse 4. For we have been sold by people and I to be what?
Destroyed, killed, and annihilated.
I pointed this out, I think, last week. That's like the old Raid commercial, you know, it kills bugs dead. There's a little bit of redundancy, right? If you kill it, it's dead. If it's dead, it's been killed, I guess. But, I mean, destroy, kill, annihilate. Wipe them out utterly. Utterly destroy them. Sound familiar? All right, so that's what's going on behind the scenes. We've been sold as male and female. Had we been sold, what does she mean by that? Had we been sold as male and female slaves, I would have held my tongue, although the enemy could never compensate compensate for the king's loss. What does that mean?
When you're a slave, you feel accepted. When you're worth something.
Yeah, number one, she would have been willing, right? I mean, they would have settled for that. They would have settled for that. I mean, being slaves is nothing really new to these people. I mean, that's where they were developed as a nation, right? In slavery. And here they are, they've been taken captive, taken into Babylon, now Persia. So this idea of being captives and slaves is nothing new. So they would have been willing to do that. Although what? It would have been detrimental to the king. She would have kept her mouth shut. So be it. Okay, but now the king answers. Okay, read that one again. Read verse 5 again and then on into verse 6, and I'll try not to interrupt.
Then King Ahasuerus said to Queen Esther, "Who is he and where is he who has dared to do this?" And Esther said, "A foe and enemy, this wicked Haman." Then Haman was terrified before the king and the queen.
Well, wouldn't you be? Yeah. The adversary and enemy is this wicked. I mean, you see her, this guy. This guy. And remember, up to this point, he thought that he was being highly honored, right? I bet there's no one in the kingdom higher than me besides the king and the queen, and she's choosing to honor me along with the king. Yeah, that's what she was planning.
What's interesting, though, you go back to chapter 3, and the king approved all of this. He
Yep.
gave his ring that used the money to
Yep.
carry out. Seems like he forgets what he assigns sometimes.
And remember that this is not the only time that something like this happens, right?
That's described right down in the Chronicles, so it's in there.
Yeah, and you trust that the people that are coming to you, I mean, that's why you put them in these positions, right? You trust them. He trusted Haman. Haman brings him information he believes to be accurate, and he still doesn't know. Remember, at that point, he did not know that Esther was a Jew. And the way that Haman brought this up to him is that these people, they are a scourge. They're a problem. They must be wiped out. So as far as the king knows, Haman is working in his best interest, but at the same time, it's almost like I was watching a video yesterday. It was a courtroom scene, and somebody is presenting their case to the judge, and the entire time, and I've seen this before, but the entire time, the judge is licking her finger and turning papers over, signing, and just listening to this and signing this and listening to this lady tell her what she get. I'm like, man, I think that sometimes maybe things can be kind of slipped in, right? But didn't Daniel experience something like that too? No, it was a setup, and the king wasn't aware. So same kind of thing.
There's also an element like he offers Esther anything to have the kingdom, just like Haman, but you have to be careful what you actually ask for. You couldn't say just give me half the kingdom.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
There's an element of trust to that request, and that
If he gets half the
supporting what you're saying there,
yep,
that there is a level that shouldn't be crossed.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, he's angry regarding this.
But if he gets after the Haman, he won't have any left.
No. I think you have a man here that works in the realm of hyperbole. I think that he's generous. He's known to obviously not make great decisions, sometimes based on emotions. But and by the way, Haman probably knows this right now too. This guy he can be a time bomb. And so now he's terrified, it says, before the king and queen. Notice that. Terrified before the king and queen. Remember again that if these plans were followed through, according to the law, what would have to happen with the queen? She's dead. Yeah. The law is the law. All right, so I think it's interesting also the way Esther described adversary and enemy is this wicked. She doesn't have anything nice to say about the guy, right? He's wicked, he's the enemy, he's the adversary. Again, that guy. All right. Verse 7. Really? Got a room full of people. We do this every week.
The king got up and waited, left his flag and went out into the palace garden. Angels realized that the king had already decided to take David and gave Queen Esther her life. Just as the king returned to the palace garden.
Okay, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Stop for just a minute. Let's look again at verse 7. So he arose in his wrath from the banquet of wine and went into the palace garden. I mean, what are you picturing there? What's going on? What's that? Fuming, pacing. Did you say pacing? I mean, just, yeah. It's not good. And obviously Haman knows it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, no doubt there is this little bit of tug. I mean, here is Haman, this man again that he trusted. So no doubt he's having to process some of this too, right? A little bit of cognitive dissonance, right? I don't know how you translate that. Okay. All right, so Haman stood before Queen Esther doing what? Begging, pleading for his life. For he saw what evil was determined against him by the king. King's mind is already made up. His only resource now is to change the mind of the queen, who then in turn possibly could change the mind of the king, which would be pretty stupid. All right. All right, Joe, go ahead. Verse 8.
Just as the king returned to the palace garden to make the call, the king was fallen on the ground. The Esther was silent. King said, while he fallen, why do you molest the queen while she is with me in the house? As soon as the word left the king's mouth, it come angry.
Wow. That's incredible. A couple of things here. Remember, again, just stacking on these things and the way that they're falling out. I don't know what the king's mind was set on when he left. I mean, again, he's fuming, he's pacing, he's trying to figure this out. But he comes back in, and it just so happens that what is Haman doing? Falling across, I don't know if that translation said it, but let me read this one again. He had fallen across the couch where Esther was. So it appeared what? He's pleading with her, begging her, please change your mind, but what does the king see that as? Assault. Yeah. You're assaulting. Wow. So it just adds to it. Adds to it.
The comedy here is that Mordecai was not bound to Haman, but here Haman is now bound to
A Jew and a woman. Yeah. Interesting.
And this is, I mean, I've seen this, and a proverb like too, and here it is. He was so proud, and I know in my life I've seen people who seem to just puff themselves up, so, everything's supporting them, and all of a sudden the bottom falls out.
Yeah. Probably all of us have. I mean, that really... Sometimes, I guess I let those things bother me sometimes because I'm aware that God knows. But it just bothers me when people have other people fooled. That it seems like, you look at them and it's pretty obvious. This person's putting on a show. This person is playing a part, and you're buying into that. Why can't you see that? And then it's even worse when you see multiple people doing it. You're scratching your head going, why are people not seeing this? Or maybe the problem is me. Maybe I'm reading into it and I'm being judgmental. But sure enough, I mean, you turn around and you also kind of wonder, wow, are they just going to get away with it? How long are they going to get? It's going to keep going and going, but the time comes ultimately where everything is exposed. find out exactly what they are. And this is the moment for Haman. This is the moment. Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, very. And the way that verse ends, let's see. Yeah, that's what I was going to get. As the word left the king's mouth. So the king is saying this. As it left his mouth, they covered Haman's face. What might that be? Put a sack over him? Maybe so. So this entire time, I mean, we already assume it anyway. You know, when they're hanging out in this banquet, it's not just the three of them, right? To cover him? Maybe. Maybe. Ah. Anybody got that? Somebody look that up for us. What did she say? What? Okay. The idea of covering his face to cover the shame that might have... Yeah. I mean, my first thought was this idea of, you know, you see somebody kidnapped or whatever, bag is put over, they're taken hostage, they're arrested. But we have these people around. I mean, you're going to have guards, have people that are watching out for the king and the queen. All right, verse 9. Okay, stop. I don't know who this eunuch is, but notice, I mean, immediately, hey, I got an idea, king. Some gallows right there that he made for Mordecai. And then the king's response, hang him. Hang him. There is no trial by a jury of his peers. There is no more time left for him to plead his case in any way. It's done. It's done. Impale him on it. Wow. Yeah, we'll get into the law part here in a minute, but impale him, really? Somebody look that up for me. Made gallows, so maybe not hanging gallows, but a structure designed to impale, or both. Both. Mm. Yeah, I mean, yeah. You're suspended in the air. I mean, the Assyrians were known for this, impaling people. So I didn't think about looking that up. I didn't realize that. Interesting. All right, so then verse 10, how does verse 10 read? So they what? Impaled him on it?
So they impaled him on the very forehead of
Okay. Yeah, we'll just make this point. No matter what, this guy's dead, right? No matter what. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little bit more cruel than hanging. But I mean, dead is dead. All right. So here's that, what comes around goes around. But bear in mind that this is not just, karma. This is you reap what you sow. And this is also God working in the background. So all of these things, all of the conniving and all of the plans and all of these evil deeds that Haman had been involved in, always bear in mind, God is aware. He knows. He knows. And we have a tendency to go through life and we want things to be fair, right? I'm doing the best that I can. I'm trying to be, an upstanding person, trying to be honest, walk in integrity. And this joker over here doesn't care about those things at all, and he's prospering. God knows. Yes, sir. What does it say?
The heathen are so bound and fit that they make nets that they can use their own fortune in order to come to the judgment the wicked is spared and the Lord is open to him.
We set a trap and then we're trapped in it, aren't we?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that goes right along with it, doesn't it? We do need to bear in mind that sometimes, it may be the case that a person gets away with something their entire life. Can that happen? Yeah, absolutely. What did Jesus say about those religious leaders that did everything for show? What did they have? Their reward. This for them is as good as it will ever get. They have their reward. When life is over, it's not going to be better. It will be far worse for them. God is just. God is just. Okay, so...
God is just. He's in control of everything.
Yeah. And it's an interesting, ironic type thing because at the same time, remember that this is one of these incredible attributes of God, how He is able to manipulate and push history in certain directions at the same time without violating the free moral agency of man. He knows exactly what we're going to do. It's pretty incredible, isn't it? Let me go back for just a moment. We'll start chapter 8, but let's look at a little bit of a bigger picture here. So Haman hated Mordecai. Obviously, he had it out for all of the Jews, no doubt going back to the events with King Agag. But he had it in for all of the Jews, despised them. But from his vantage point, it might have been a personal vendetta. It might have just been, some sort of bias against them for whatever reason. I think we know, but that's his vantage point, right? I want to wipe them all out. I don't like them. I hate them. But from God's vantage point and from the vantage point of the scheme of redemption, what is Haman attempting to do, really? I mean, he didn't realize it, but if he were successful, what would he have done? Yeah, he would have destroyed God's plan to redeem man. Not that he could have been successful. I mean, the Scriptures are clear, and that's why Mordecai demonstrated such faith. Deliverance will arise. God is going to prevail. His plans will come to fruition. But what Haman was doing, whether he realized it or not, and I don't think that he did, what he was attempting to do was to destroy the plans of God. Ultimately. We can't fight against that. I mean, we can, but not with great success. Gamaliel in the book of Acts, he said that regarding the apostles, right? If you continue to fight against this thing and it be from God, you're fighting against God. You're not going to prevail. I don't know if that's necessarily 100% solid advice, because it may be that, with that reasoning, then we would say that we should not contend for the faith because, hey, that might be God at work here in this particular thing. We know that that's not the case. But we can't fight against God and be successful. Yes, sir?
That's a difficult subject, what you're talking about there. If it's 100%, then why should we contend for the faith? And that falls into some of the true Calvinist belief.
Yep.
Is Scripture, is something, because it is Scripture, it's there for a reason. We should study it, we should try to
Yep.
understand it, but at the same time, I think we're getting into a thought process or a reasoning process that is the very best we can kind of loosely grasp.
Yeah.
That's something that is important to me
mean, to me, that subject's important, but I also kind of loosely grab it. I don't try to have a firm.
Yeah. Look, and I would simply say because in that whole process there are decisions that will be made. God will be victorious. We do know that, but we want to preach and teach and contend to the point that we are encouraging as many people as possible to line up on the winning side. We want people to be on God's side, and so. We definitely need to be careful in the sense that, God's will is going to be done. Well, it's God's will that we preach and teach and contend, strive, right? That is God's will. All right. Okay, so he's ultimately fighting against God, and he's not going to prevail. Obviously, he didn't. It's done. But that still doesn't fix the larger problem, because what is the law of the Medes and Persians? What's the nature of it? Can't be changed. So going back to Rick mentioning the signet of the king, this is a law that has been enacted. So now something else has to be done. All right, how much time do we have? What? Okay. Chapter 8, let's start at verse 1. Somebody start reading for us. Okay, stop. Don't y'all hate when I keep interrupting? Notice how just the events are marching kind of quickly here, right? On that same day. So, hang him, impale him, whatever, kill him, execute him. So it's done. And then on that same day, I mean, he had stated what? I'll give you anything that you want, even to the half of the kingdom. And now he's like, I'm going to give you anything you want to the half of the kingdom. I'm going to give you all of his stuff. Everything that he had is now yours. All right. So she is now in possession of those things. But we have now Mordecai coming before the king. All right. Keep going. Okay. Stop again. Again, just stacking these things up on how things are playing out. So there is still great concern, and we'll continue to read and see this. There's still great concern for the survival of the Jews. At the same time, now what has taken place? I mean, from the very beginning of this account, where we have Mordecai hanging out, kind of in the gate, obviously in some sort of position, but at the same time hated by the second in command, and his life being threatened. Now where is he? He's in the position that Haman was in. Yeah. Now he's in this position. He was moving before by means of the queen, right? He was using her to get things done that needed to be done, but now he's in a position where he can take care of this. All right? Keep going. All right, mine says, implored him with tears to counteract the evil. So she understands the nature of this law, right? Counteract. She's not asking for this law to be wiped off. She understands it. So something can be done to counteract it. All right, keep going.
Then the king extended the gold scepter to Esther, and she arose and stood before him. If it pleases the king, she said, and if he regards me with favor and thinks of the right thing to do, and if he is pleased with me, let an order be written overruling the dispatches that Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite, devised and wrote to destroy the Jews in all the king's causes. For how can I bear to see disaster fall on my people? How can
Okay, stop for just a minute. He just did it again, didn't he? Okay, write up a law. Here's my ring. He just did. That's how this came about to begin with, right? I mean, it's moving in the right direction this time, but yeah, whatever seems good to you, I trust you. And here's half my kingdom. I don't know that he's very discerning, but that's good because it works out in the best interest of the people here, right? Okay, keep going.
At once the royal secretaries were summoned. On the 23rd day of the third month, the month of Sliders, they wrote out all of Mordecai's orders to the Jews, to the satraps, governors, and nobles of 127 provinces, stretching from India to Turkey. These orders were written in the script of each province, in the language of each people, and also to the Jews in their own script and language.
Okay, so remember that's what had been done, right, with Haman's decree. So here we had this counteraction being done. All right, keep going.
Mordecai wrote in the name of King Xerxes, sealed the dispatches with the king's signature, and sent them by mounted couriers who rode fast horses, especially bred for the king. The king's edict granted the Jews in every city the right to assemble and protect themselves, to destroy, kill, and annihilate any armed force of any nationality or province that might attack them and their women and children, and to plunder the property of their enemies. The day appointed the Jews to do this in all the provinces of King Xerxes was the 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar.
Okay, so what's he telling them? Defend yourself. Yeah, defend yourself. He's giving them warning. Be ready. And what you're going to do, I think part of the good news, obviously the bad news is you're going to have to fight. And it's not necessarily going to be pretty. I mean, there's no promise of that. We see how it plays out, but so you're going to have to be ready to defend yourself. But then there's also this idea of, let me find it real quick. Yeah, it wasn't going to be on the plundering. What was it? Hold on. Just the idea that they would not have to fear repercussions from the nation, right? They're being granted permission to do this. Once they do it, they don't have to worry about the king gathering an army to go against them to take down the people that or to take them down because they took down their people. All right, does that make sense? All right, keep going.
A copy of the text of the edict was to be issued as law in every province and made known to the people of every nationality, so that the Jews would be ready on that day to avenge themselves on their enemies. The couriers riding the royal horses raced out, spurred on by the king's command, and the edict was also issued in the citadel of Susa. Mordecai left the king's presence wearing royal garments of blue and white, large crown of gold, and a purple robe of fine linen. And the city of Susa held a joyous celebration.
Okay, again, the tables have drastically turned, haven't they? I mean, this is God at work. And by the way, it doesn't always turn out necessarily this pretty. And again, there's going to be some fighting, but especially those that lean toward this kind of idea of a prosperity gospel. You obey God, and God's going to array you in fine linen, and He's going to put a crown on you. Now we know in the Christian dispensation that being faithful to God, just as it was here, can lead to your demise. I mean, following Christ can get you killed. So this is a rare occasion, but it happened because of a specific reason, and that was to save the people of God and primarily the plan of God to save mankind. All right, so then verse 16 says what?
For the Jews, it was the time of happiness and joy, gladness and honor.
All right, so again, just even for them as now a race in this foreign land, the tables have turned. So for Mordecai personally or individually, now also collectively for the nation, This is great. I mean, they even know that they're going to have to fight, they're going to have to defend themselves, but there is reason to rejoice. They have a position of high honor, and they're able to prevail. Okay, finish up the chapter, and then we'll go ahead and bring it to a close.
In every province and in every city, wherever the edict of the king went, there was joy and gladness among the Jews, with feasting and celebrating. Many people of other nationalities became Jews because the fear of the Jews was ceased.
Okay. Please bear in mind, so we'll take up chapters 9 and 10 hopefully next week, but bear in mind how this plays out into the first century, right? You have the gospel going into all parts of the Roman Empire. Where did the Roman Empire come from? What was it prior to that? It was the Grecian Empire, and then prior to that it was what? Persian. Yep. All right, so all of these individuals that are worshiping in these synagogues that have a Gentile background, this is a big part of that. These were individuals that were either Jews by race or Jewish by being proselyted, by converting. And all of that is priming the world for the gospel. Okay? On the exterminating? Okay. Dismissed. Thank you.